welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Thanks.io and KVCore. We're going to show you how to set up a Postman monitor that runs every day, every minute, whichever you determine the sequence or however often you would want that monitor to run. Now, this is designed to basically go and get new contacts and have that contact be sent a postcard 4x6 from Thanks.io's system if it has a mailing address. So let's dive into this. First off, we're going to start in Thanks.io's API documentation. You should be able to access this once you log into Thanks.io. If you are not a Thanks.io user, what are you waiting for? You should sign up today. They make it simple. Wholesale postcards for only 49 cents or as little as 49 cents. Click the link in the description. But basically, Thanks.io has a URL endpoint for a 4x6 postcard. So we're going to be able to essentially tell our monitor when we want to trigger this postcard. KVCore also has open API documentation. So we're able to basically say retrieve a list of contacts that maybe were generated in the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 minute, whatever you determine. You could even have it set to do it daily as well if you wish, right? So in the last 24 hours, give me all the contacts that have been registered. That's basically a new lead. So in order to do this, we need to find our URL endpoint for the get contacts, which we could see here. And we also need to open this up and see how we want to filter this list, right? I don't want to retrieve all the contacts in my database. I only want to retrieve the new ones. And to do this, we're going to use the filter registered after, right? Or registered before. You could use either of these. Now, let's head into Postman. And what we're going to want to do is start setting up a monitor or a workspace, right? So if you're familiar with Postman, you're going to head into Postman and you're going to create a new workspace. Now, in this workspace, we're going to go ahead and add a new collection. And then within that collection, we're going to have a sequence of requests, right? And it's very important to notate here that you're going to basically want to make sure you have these in the order of which you want that monitor to make these requests. So, for example, I wouldn't want to try and send a postcard before I actually retrieve the new contact data. So, once we've created this, we're going to go ahead and click on Get New Contacts. And let's show you what we have here. Here's our API endpoint for KVCore to retrieve contacts, and you can see we have created a filter for the registered after. Now, you can't just use the timestamp as you would presume, right? A timestamp is essentially a point in time of which you are telling the system to go ahead and retrieve data from. So I could say retrieve data from yesterday, today, 10 minutes ago, and so forth. In order to do that, we actually got to add into our pre-request test script. So we're basically going to set in the environment, we're going to set the timestamp to 10 minutes prior, which you can see here. So we're setting our timestamp. We have our sequence here, and we also have the 10 by 60 by 1000, right? So 10 minutes, there's 60 minutes an hour, and about 1,000 seconds in a minute, right? So and so forth, and maybe not in a minute, but you get the gist of that, right? So we're basically setting our timestamp here in our environment. So if we go here and we look at the new environment here, if we look at all of these sections or all of these values, you can see we have total. You could also see that we have a current timestamp, right? And there it is in Unix format. So when we go ahead and run this, we're going to retrieve this, right? And I should get no data. This is expected. The reason why we're not getting any data is because basically there hasn't been any new contacts created in the last 10 minutes. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is log into my KVCore account here on a separate screen. And I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new fresh contact. And we're going to label that YouTube, right? So we're going to say YouTube Postman. And we're going to go ahead and say ytpostman@gmail.com. And we're going to go ahead and also give this a fake phone number. So we're going to say, give it a number. We have permission to email. Now, I'm going to assign an address here just because I do want this to actually send a postcard. So we're going to go ahead and say Arcadia Park. And we'll give this San Antonio label. And then we'll say Texas and 78247. Now I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and add this contact. And what you're going to notice is that when I go ahead and run this again, I'm going to get that contact retrieved. So there it is, YouTube Postman, ytpostman@gmail.com, manual ad source, and so forth. Now, we actually got to add one more step. You notice how we didn't actually get the primary address, the primary city. We didn't get any of those details. But if we look in our environment here and we go to our environment, we'll be able to basically see those details here, right? So the ID actually updated in my environment. You can see from the previous one. So those, of course, match. Now, what we need to do is go ahead and retrieve those contact details. So we're going to go and make another request, and we're going to use the URL endpoint for that contact in particular. Now, one thing that we're going to do differently here is that we actually need to store those values that are being returned. So we're going to store the first name, we're going to store the last name, email address, primary address, city, state, and zip. Because those are fields and values that I'm going to need for Thanks.io's postcard. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and you're going to go ahead and see that we get the first name, last name, email, we get all the cell phone number, we got the primary address, all those details in here, right? Now, when we click on our environment over here, you'll see that those values actually updated as well. So now we have all of our values inputted into here. Now, all I got to do is head over to Thanks.io, right? Again, we want to check those Thanks.io API documents. We want the 4x6 postcard, so there's our URL endpoint. And it's very important to pay attention to the authorization. So do we need a bearer token? Is this basic, which means a username and password? Or is this like an OAuth where you're going to have to create some sort of customized authentication process, right? And then we want to look at the body. What fields are required? So image template, handwriting style, message, recipients, and so forth. Now, if you don't know your image template ID, there's an easy solution for that. You could actually go into the image section down here at the bottom, image templates, and you can click on get list. And there's a URL endpoint that you'll actually be able to call that you can retrieve all of your image templates that you've created in your Thanks.io account. And then you can basically just copy and paste that ID into your Postman workflow, which you can see I did here. Now, if you want to see the request, this will be, let me see if I have the request in here. It does not look like we have it. So let me show you how to actually do this. So here's my GET request. Let's go ahead and go into Thanks.io. We're going to copy this URL endpoint, and we're going to go ahead and pull it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, in my header section, you'll notice that this is requiring authorization and also content application JSON, right? So that's the format of which the payload's going to actually be received in. So we can go ahead and go authorization, and then we can say bearer, and that's going to be a bearer token. We could also say content type, and then we can go ahead and in the content type, go ahead and content type application JSON, right? And that's just basically going to format my data. Now I'm going to just go ahead and grab my authorization key from this other poll or this other request that I have. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And now if I pull that URL endpoint, you'll see that it returns all of my image templates that are associated with that account of which I created that API access token for. Right? So now it's as simple as going ahead and copying and pasting that into the body, right? Because again, I showed you that we need a raw body. You could actually simply just go ahead and copy when you go into this send postcard section. You can go ahead and copy this data payload here, and you can just paste it into here, and then you'll just update your message. You'll update all your parameters that you want passed through, and so forth. But there's my image template. There's my handwriting style, there's my message, and my recipients. So if I go ahead and just click on send here, you'll see that we actually get a 200 OK. And if we open this up a little bit, you could see, hi YouTube, thank you for registering on our website. We look forward to having the opportunity to assist you in your home buying process. This is a real estate related postcard. So the cool thing about this is that when we go into Thanks.io, they actually have the ability for you to put this in developer mode. You can see that there is my request. And my postcard send, and then you can go ahead and see once this preview is done that it was actually sent. Now, here's the really cool thing. I can turn this collection into a monitor. To do that, if you just go into the monitors tab here, you can go ahead and click on create a monitor, and we'll label this YouTube Thanks.io. And then you select the collection here. So we'll select Thanks.io. And we'll go ahead and set the environment. So I want the new environment and those values that it stores. And here's where you can decide how often you run this. So if I want to run this every hour, if If I want to run this every 2 hours and so forth, if you're on a paid subscription, you can actually run this every minute if you so please to. But again, there's a lot of API calls and a lot of data that can accumulate and become very costly if you're running this every minute, assuming you're retrieving big payloads, right? You're retrieving 500 contact records, you're retrieving 3 API calls and individual sequences or collections, as you saw like I had. So now we're going to go ahead and set our request timeout. So we'll 500 milliseconds. That just means that basically I want this to stop polling and running if it meets that 5,000 millisecond request timeout. So let's go ahead and create this monitor and let's run it. Right? So we're going to go ahead and click on run, and we got an error there. Monitor could not be run. So here we go. Let's go ahead and refresh. Sometimes you just need to do that for this to go ahead and run. But we have that done. Let's actually go into our collections and just check one thing, right? Because we did make some updates. So let's go ahead and save. Make sure all these are saved. They are. And we are perfect. So let's go to our monitor and let's try this one more time. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and delete this. And we'll give this, we'll try this again. So we'll give this a YouTube, thanks.io. Select our collection. Collection tag, current, environment. Let's select new environment. And then let's go ahead and do this. And let's go ahead and try this one more time. Let's go ahead and run it. Monitor could not be run. So we have an issue somewhere. Let's go ahead and refresh. See where our issue is. Let's see what's going on. So let's go ahead and add a new contact here. All right, so let's do this just for time being. And we will call this Postman, the bomb. Postman, the bomb at gmail.com. And we'll give this a number. And let's go ahead and give it an address. And we'll go ahead and add it. Now let's go ahead and run this. Alright, so here we go. We can go ahead and run this, and there we go. It's running as expected. No new test to request. We got that 200. Again, really cool way to set up those monitors, have it recirculate, pull in new contact records, basically using the API endpoints. You've been watching another API Explorer video. Stay tuned, click like and subscribe for more cool content like this if you're looking to set up some really kind of custom workflows and custom integrations using Postman or any other API endpoint like APINation.com. Go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks everyone. Have a happy new year, and we'll see you next year.